On today's episode of NHL Friends, Pierre-Luc Dubois doesn't try. Ironically, drafted back-to-back in 2016, just this past week, we would see a massive blockbuster deal swapping two disgruntled stars. You can't make this stuff up, folks. So, what happened? Back in the 2016 NHL draft, it was actually a draft day surprise when Columbus went off the board by a couple picks and selected Dubois over Jesse Puljujarvi. Well, that worked out. Since being drafted, Dubois has slowly but surely developed into an elite top 6 center. He's already proven he has 30-goal upside and plays a highly desirable, gritty, two-way game. And at the age of 22, Dubois still has a ceiling to be that legitimate #1 star. So, with all this momentum, what happened?
John Tortorella has gone over to the Calgary Flames hallway outside their room.
Of the city. You know that?
Will you let these other guys just go stand somewhere else, would you please?
No.
John, do you think this has to be a physical series for your team to win or a fast series? I think it's going to be a little of both. Right now, I don't know what the hell it is.
What is the remedy? I don't know how you want me to answer that.
Well, I mean, what do you think you need to do in order that this...
Play harder. I wish I could give you a explanation about it. I can't. I thought it was probably one of the worst hockey games I've been involved in.
John Tortorella, the Gordon Ramsay of hockey. Over 30 years in this space, Torts has a longer highlight reel of him yelling at reporters than Ovechkin does with his goals. And that's the problem. John Tortorella has a very specific system that he expects all his players to buy into. Now, I have absolutely no problem with that. But with this coaching style, expect there to be many internal clashes. The man is the epitome of polarizing. Some players love him and will fall on the sword for him, whereas others don't agree with his coaching style in any regard. Flashback to last year's playoffs. This infamous clip of Torts emerges, screaming at the top of his lungs at Dubois. Now, this event would lead to Dubois scoring a hat trick, which is extremely ironic. But as stated by Dubois, this type of angry screaming motivation happened on many occasions. Again, some people don't mind. I mean, I personally saw the most development in my career with these types of coaches. But at the same time, this can eat away at players and make them really resent the coach and their system. When you're that intense and polarizing, these events are bound to happen. And so, yeah, I'm gonna guess here, this probably wasn't the best way to deal with it. Dubois would turn back on the theatrics and have one of the most least effort shifts I've ever seen by a star. To the point where it's honestly hilarious. And something that would happen in fairy tales, Patrik Laine and Jack Roslovic, who were also very disgruntled with their roles in Winnipeg, would also both demand trades. Roslovic to the extent where he refused to play another game as a Jet. And the cherry on top, he's also a Columbus loco. And to be honest, I keep hearing this narrative that Columbus crushed the Jets in this trade. And to those people, I would say, hold up. Yes, I believe Laine can be a 40-goal guy, but he's also objectively one-dimensional. With that being said, again, Laine is still young and he still has time to grow his other intangibles. But on the other hand, Pierre-Luc Dubois has first-line center upside, a position that has become extremely valuable and hard to attain in today's NHL. Right now, I think it's a lot closer than what people think. But if Laine can be a 40-goal scorer and Roslovic becomes that second-line center, then yes, Columbus won. But that's a lot of what-ifs, so let's see what happens here. And also, given the fact that they were all upset all-stars who wanted out, this trade couldn't have worked out better. But what do you guys think? Who won? Let me know in the comments down below.
The #1 name on the lips of everyone here today is Eric Lindros from the Oshawa Generals.
Eric Lindros has been described as so much of a can't-miss prospect by just about everybody, including myself. You go back over, I don't remember the last time a hockey player came along that had that kind of hype associated with him.
During the 1991 draft, the NHL would see a prospect who could only be explained as the next potential great one. Eric Lindros. At the age of 16, this guy could literally compete with 10-year veterans in the NHL. He was a man-child who had unbelievable physical traits on top of having a high-end elite offensive toolset. He was basically a wrecking ball who can outcompete anyone physically and offensively. In his draft year, he had 71 goals, 149 points in 57 games, 17 points in 7 World Junior games as an underager. So it was a no-brainer when he was ranked as the #1 prospect in the world. So, what went wrong? Well, to start from the beginning, after being drafted first overall in the 1989 OHL draft, Lindros also refused to report to the Greyhounds. In fact, him doing so would single-handedly create a new rule in Canadian hockey systems that allowed teams to trade draft picks. And so after it was cemented that the Quebec Nordiques had gotten the first overall pick, Lindros and his family would once again say they refused to report. Imagine if McDavid took a look at the Oilers and was like, maybe not. And they did this because they strongly they hated Marcel Abreu, who is the current CEO and president of the Nordiques. Now, this is probably one of the most polarizing French-Canadian hockey topics the game has ever seen, but at the same time, they did have some reasons. They strongly disliked the culture of the team at the time, they didn't like the market viability, and the cherry on top was the fact that he apparently made explicit comments about his mom. And considering that he was just thrown to the curve, as he was terminated as president of the Canada Olympic Foundation in 2015 for sexual harassment. So maybe the comments about his mom had some merit. But at the end of the day, Lindros had helicopter parents who were trying to carve out the perfect NHL career. An impossible task. I mean, who doesn't want that? But at the same time, life doesn't work like that. And at the draft, he refused to even put on a jersey. In fact, even though he was clearly ready for the NHL, he would refuse to have anything to do with the organization and went 15 months without playing in protest. So finally, the Nordiques would cave in and trade Lindros. But another cherry on top to this whole Lindros saga is that when they did trade him, they accidentally traded him to 2 separate teams. One rep made a deal with the Rangers, and another representative made a deal with Philly, which added another extremely entertaining layer to this whole ordeal. But this is what they ended up getting. One of the most stacked trades the game has ever seen. Peter Forsberg, a Hall of Famer. 2 top 10 draft picks, $15 million in cash, alongside of some other solid players. And without a doubt, the Nordiques in the long run would win this deal, because even though Lindros would live up to expectations, as he had several MVP seasons, I don't know if it was karma or the hockey world working in its mysterious ways, but Lindros would be plagued with concussion issues his entire career. Whereas the Nordiques, with Peter Forsberg helping lead the charge, would win 2 Stanley Cups. Well, kinda. But what do you guys think? Now that we know more on this topic, should Lindros have stood his ground? Or should he put down his ego and played?
With the 3rd pick, Tampa selects from Halifax, Jonathan Drouin.
Well, if you want to see offensive hockey, just watch Tampa Bay next year.
Drafted 3rd overall in 2013, Drouin was considered by many analysts to have just as much upside as Nathan MacKinnon. In fact, they even played together. And if you were one of those people, I don't blame you at all. 105 points in 49 games in his draft year. 35 points in 17 playoff games, which led to a Memorial Cup win. Drouin got CHL Player of the Year in his draft year. And when you consider that Tampa already had a super team in the making, Drouin had huge expectations, as he was even the Calder favorite. But, shockingly, Tampa would think he wasn't ready and sent him back down to the queue to develop. The next season, Drouin would make the team, but in a more so limited role. And this had strongly to do with Nikita Kucherov. Because after Drouin finally made the team, Kucherov would have his big breakout season, as he went from 18 points in 2014 to a 30-goal scorer the next season. And so he stole rightfully stole that spot. But hey, at the age of 19, Drouin was still extremely young. The next season, expecting a big jump, Drouin would come in and put up a very respectable 6 points in his first 5 games back. He was ready. Psych. In the next 14 games, he would put up 2 points and would be sent down for some more development. But at this point, Drouin was starting to get mad. I deserve to be in this league? Mad. If you do deserve that, maybe be a bit more consistent. And I will say, I've been following Drouin for a long time and I'm a big fan of his. But it's hard to argue against being sent down when you are nearly invisible for 15% of an entire season. And you'll get better looks in the AHL. But who am I to talk? Drouin would be so upset, he would demand a trade. And of course, wouldn't even report to the minors. And the Tampa Bay Lightning had to suspend him. And so his agent, who just so happens to be Alan Walsh, yes, this Alan Walsh, also the lover of theatrics, would say that Drouin will not be playing for you so he doesn't risk injury. Hey, fair enough. But at the same time, you are a 20-year-old player new to the league who hasn't proved anything. He clearly had huge upside, but his consistency issues were glaring, and Tampa wasn't in the position to hand out ice time for free. So from a personal perspective, yeah, I can understand his frustration, but this is also part of almost every prospect's development path. But there was a silver lining, as Drouin would get called back up to the playoffs, and with a real chip on his shoulder, he would explode. 14 points in his first 17 playoff appearances. And all that drama before, we're past it. Drouin was now looking legit. The next season, Drouin would make the roster and hold a full-time spot, but he still wasn't happy. And with a team of young studs, Steve Yzerman thought that the former 3rd overall pick in Drouin was some good trade bait. And so over a year of all this drama, Drouin would be shipped off to the Habs for Mikhail Sergachev. I've always been a big fan of Drouin, and I still am, but his ego was definitely pretty inflated in this situation, which caused a huge ruckus and distraction in the franchise. Definitely not a good thing for a prospect who hasn't proven anything. And today, he is still struggling with some of those same issues. He has all the skill to be a point per game star, but struggles to be consistent. Whereas Sergachev looks like a potential Norris candidate for the next decade. But what do you guys think? Will Drouin break out? Montreal so far is looking fantastic, so specifically this year, it's going to be interesting to see if Drouin can truly break out. Anyways guys, has your team ever had a player who refused to play for your team? Or maybe someone who just demanded a trade? Comment down below, I'd love to know. And make sure to press subscribe for some more awesome hockey content. Thank you guys so much for watching.